Welcome to this explainer. Today we are setting off on a truly cinematic journey straight into the mist-shrouded peaks of Mount Wuyi, located in the northwest of China's Fujian province. We're exploring an absolutely incredible UNESCO World Heritage Site that is a pristine sanctuary for biodiversity, a literal masterpiece of geology, and, maybe most famously, the birthplace of some of the most revered tea in the entire world. So, if you've ever wanted to understand how landscape, agriculture, and human philosophy can perfectly align, well, you are definitely in the right place.
Let's dive right in. What actually happens when perfect geology meets ancient philosophy? I want you to just keep that poetic hook in the back of your mind as we go through this explainer. We are going to discover exactly how earth, water, wood, and spirit all intertwine to create something entirely unique. Because this isn't just about rocks and plants, right? It's about an entire ecosystem working together in perfect harmony. Section 1. The Red Rock Kingdom, a masterpiece 65 million years in the making.
To begin, we have to look at the Earth itself, tracing all the way back to massive tectonic movements that pushed this landscape skyward. You'll hear the term Danjia. Basically, that defines these steep, spectacularly dramatic landscapes formed from red sandstone and conglomerate rocks. We're talking millions of years of water erosion, intense tectonic shifts, and gravity working together to carve out deep valleys and sheer rock faces. A perfect example of this is the iconic Goddess Peak. This towering residual pillar was literally left standing after the ancient red rock massive surrounding it just collapsed under their own weight. Time and erosion effectively sculpted a masterpiece right out of the stone.
Moving on to Section 2, Drifting the Nine Bends, the Emerald Lifeline of Wuyi.
From those towering red cliffs, our spatial journey shifts down to the valley floor. And the absolute crucial thing to grasp here is that this stream is the lifeline of the whole region. The Ninth Bend Stream, or Juju Stream, stretches for a remarkable 62.8 kilometers right through these deep valleys. It meanders like a giant jade belt around 36 towering peaks and 99 ridges. And the absolute best way to experience it, traditionally via bamboo rafts. Just imagine sitting on a raft steered by highly skilled local boatmen using these incredibly long bamboo poles, just gliding silently through the morning mist. Along the route, you can look up and see ancient cliff carvings and sacred caves left by early inhabitants. It's this pure, slow-moving water that nourishes the entire surrounding ecosystem. Which brings us to Section 3, the Rock Tea Miracle, Roots in the Stone. Moving upward from the serene river back to the rugged, rocky crevices, we introduce the wood element of our journey, bringing us to the legendary Wuyi rock tea. This is an agricultural miracle born from sheer stone. 360. Seriously, that is how many years the original Da Hong Pao mother trees have survived. No way, right? I mean, these ancient bushes aren't planted in soft, rolling green fields. They are tenaciously clinging to the crevices of sheer cliff faces. And practically all the Da Hong Pao tea grown today originates from cuttings of these incredibly resilient mother trees. And this perfectly illustrates why Wuyi tea is just so highly prized. It possesses something called yanyan, which essentially translates to rock rime. But what does that actually mean for the tea? Well, the mist in the valleys condenses on those rocky slopes and trickles down, absorbing minerals from the red rocks before finally feeding the tea roots. The locals actually call this mineral-rich water stone milk. This highly specific microclimate infuses the tea with an unmistakable complex flavor profile. It initially hits you with an earthy roasted flavor, which then beautifully transforms into a complex bouquet of floral sweetness and fruity notes. There's this local saying that just hits the nail on the head. There's no tea without rocks. It really captures the magic of Wuyi perfectly. The Danjia geology isn't just a pretty backdrop. It is the fundamental biological reason this tea even survives, let alone tastes the way it does. The red gravel soil provides the minerals, the rocks provide the shade, and the natural drainage prevents waterlogging. Nature essentially engineered the ultimate tea garden. Section 4. The Art of Processing. A sacred, meticulous mission. But nature is really only half the story. Let's dive into the fire and craft element, because making rock tea is incredibly complex. I mean, just look at how intense this timeline is. The harvesting window is incredibly narrow, essentially running from April 20th to May 6th. During late April, the city of Wuyi is virtually deserted. Why? Because nearly everyone, probably even the local accountant, head straight into the mountains. Gathering these precious leaves isn't just a job. It becomes a sacred community mission. The entire year's crop depends entirely on these few frantic weeks of perfectly timed handpicking.
To really feel the weight of this mission, let's look at the story of a modern inheritor. Meet Jasmine. Get this, she actually used to live in Chicago, working as a fast-paced securities analyst, but she completely left that high-stress corporate world behind to return home to Wuyi. She wanted to follow in the footsteps of her father, a celebrated tea master, and truly master these ancient, traditional tea-making techniques so she could share them with a younger, international audience.
So Jasmine has to master a process that's got over a dozen rigorous steps, but these three are the core of crafting Wuyi rock tea. First, the fresh green leaves are withered. Second comes fermentation, which requires the tea master to manipulate the leaves at precisely the right temperature to coax out those complex aromas. And finally, roasting. Roasting stops the fermentation dead in its tracks and establishes the final flavor. As Jasmine's father describes it, halting the fermentation at the exact right millisecond with fire is a lot like hitting a perfect golf swing. You really only get one shot to get it right, and there are absolutely no fixed formulas.
Now, while rock tea gets a lot of the spotlight, Wuyi has another absolutely incredible export. Let's do a quick comparison of its two legendary teas. First, rock tea, which as we know is a semi-fermented oolong from the rocky crevices. But further up, near the Tianyou Pass, at higher altitudes, you find Lapsang Souchong. Widely considered the world's very first black tea, it is fully fermented and traditionally baked over a pinewood fire, which gives it a distinctly wild, smoky flavor. Both teas are world-class, yet entirely different, shaped by their specific altitudes and crafts. And that leads us to our final act, Section 5, the scholar's tranquility. Tea as a spiritual way of life. Because tea here isn't just a beverage, it is a philosophy. Enter Zhu Xi. So, living about 800 years ago during the Southern Song Dynasty, this great philosopher actually taught right here in the Wuyi Mountains. The breathtaking geography of the 9 bends and those towering cliffs directly inspired his Neo-Confucian teachings. He literally saw the natural laws of the flowing water and the growing plants as a mirror for human ethics. Zhu Xi deeply influenced Wuyi's tea culture. He really believed that the true beauty of tea isn't in how it looks, but in the virtues it teaches us. It forces us to slow down, prioritizing inner peace. He used it to teach frugality and moderation, actively rejecting extravagance. And perhaps most famously in Chinese culture, there's the concept of eating bitter. When you drink tea, you experience a momentary bitterness, but that is quickly followed by a long-lasting, lingering sweetness. It's a literal reminder that enduring hardship allows you to truly appreciate the good in life. And wow, this brings our whole elemental journey full circle, right back to a core concept, Tian Ren He Yi, the harmony between man and nature. The ancient red rocks, the slow-flowing 9-bend stream, the tenacious tea bushes, and the dedicated tea masters of Mount Wuyi, they don't just exist next to each other. They interact, they support each other, and they perfectly embody this harmonious coexistence. The environment dictates the tea, and the people protect the environment.
So as we wrap up this explainer today, I really want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. You don't necessarily need to travel all the way to a misty mountain in Fujian to experience this kind of balance. Think about the lessons of Wuyi's tea masters and philosophers. How can you practice that moderation, maybe endure a little bitterness for a sweeter outcome, and bring the tranquility and harmony of Mount Wuyi into your own daily life? Thank you so much for joining me to explore this fascinating topic. Until next time, stay curious.